Okay, welcome. We are here today for the Capricorn new moon. So the new moon was like late last night or early this morning, depending upon where you are in the world. And it's accompanied by a eclipse that's only seen more in like the Middle East and Asia right now, not here in the United States or really in most of Europe, depending upon where you might be. I am going to share my screen because I've made some slides today, and we're just going to jump in and start with the slides today. And okay, and then we're going to start the slideshow from the beginning. Okay, so it's an astrology and aromatherapy class. So today we're talking about birch sweet essential oils and frankincense along with the new moon. But I always like to start at the beginning by creating a sacred space. And I think it's nice to do that with the essential oils. So if you don't have birch or you don't have frankincense, or if you do, you're welcome to use them. But if you don't, then any essential oils that you have, and if not, that's fine too, we'll just drop in. But before we get started, I want to read this quote from Cynthia J. Oliveira, talking about anointing from her new book, which I could show you here, that just recently came out. It's got this gorgeous cover about anointing. It's called The Book of Anointing. So, quote, "Anointing with a highly focused intention is a rite of passage to reset one's entire being. Essences enter us through inhalation or through the skin, and quickly travel to the brain, the bloodstream, the organs, and the fields of energy surrounding our body. They are capable of recalibrating matter, mind, and spirit in an enchanted way. The truth of our divine nature is always present on a cellular level, and the essences assist us in this recognition by catalyzing and integrating this untapped source of power." So it's pretty powerful. So if you have some essences, we'll just start. You could take a few and just, you can anoint the top of your head or your throat or your heart, your feet, whatever you feel drawn to. And you can use the birch, the frankincense, anything you have. And if you don't have any essential oils, that's fine too. Just anoint yourself with love, right? Just focusing on sending yourself some love. We're in the love season, although it can be a very trying time. Love, family, you know, so much going on, spending so much money, all this kind of stuff. But let's just take a moment to just close our eyes and just settle into our bodies here, kind of letting go of the holidays right now, letting go of maybe everything you had to do today to get here, all of that, and just feel your feet, whether they're on the ground or if you're sitting in a chair, or just feel your body resting on the earth. We're just kind of drop down into our bodies for a moment. Taking a few breaths, just letting your breath drop down into your body. Maybe letting your breath reach all the way down to your pelvic floor, down to your feet, down to the earth. And then as you feel the magnetic pull of the earth grounding you, bring your awareness to the moon and the new moon. And the new moon travels with the sun. So wherever the sun is in the sky, you probably could have a sense of where it is right now, even if you're indoors. And just feel into the moon energy there, the new moon. So we're grounded into the earth, and we're also increasing our awareness of the moon, where the moon is in the sky with the sun. And the new moon is this amazing time to set intentions and plant seeds for this moon cycle, which we'll talk about more. And then when you're ready, you can open your eyes. And I wanted to start this class with this prayer to the grandmother. So I changed this next slide. And it's a perfect prayer for the Capricorn new moon, because Capricorn is all about the circle of grandmothers, which we'll talk about in just a moment. So let's read this together. Grandmothers, wise and loving ones, you who know the ways of love, the ways of peace, the ways of cooperation and collaboration, the ways of our home planet, Mother Earth, the ways of the rivers, lakes, and oceans, the ways of the trees, the plants, and animals, the ways of birth, growth, death, and rebirth, the ways of the planets and stars, the ways of light and dark and the gifts of each, the ways of the natural cycles, including the ways of the sun and the moon through the seasons, the ways of sustainability and responsible stewardship, the ways of joyful living in balance and harmony with all life, the ways of duality within great mystery, teaching us to be all we can be, the ways of magic and alchemy, the ways of time, creating new, wise, and sustainable timelines, the ways of inspired action, creating more love, more joy, more brilliance, the ways of health and well-being that vibrate with love and joy and bliss. Sacred grandmothers, guide me to learn these wise ways so that I bring forth the new earth within me, benefiting all life everywhere. It is done, it is so, and I am grateful. And that was written by Kaylin K. Castell, one of my shamanic astrology teachers. Okay, so now we've opened our circle here together for the new moon. Let's learn about the new moon specifically. So it's a Capricorn new moon, and it's the Capricorn sun. So when it's the new moon, it's always in the same sign as the sun. And here's just a chart from the new moon, which was exactly at 10:13 p.m. last night, Mountain Standard Time. The new moon, the energy, the day before, the day of, and the day after are all part of that kind of new moon cycle. So we're not late or anything like that. But I wanted to point out on the chart, you can just see here, this is the moon, and the red circle here is the moon sign, and the little bullseye is the sun sign, and they're both at 4 Capricorn. So you can see it's when they're exactly conjunct, traveling together. And the moon then illuminates and lightens and brings more energy to that Capricorn season that we're in right now. And then we'll come back to this, but just notice too here, look at all this stuff that's in Capricorn, right? Of all the things on the chart here, there's so much in Capricorn, and we'll talk about that at the very end. So just to get a sense of, so here we are in the Earth, and the moon is between us and the sun at the new moon, right? So the light is on the other side and we can't see it. That's why it's a dark moon. And that's where the solar eclipse occurs if you're in a certain part of the world, you know, last night or early this morning, you could see a solar eclipse with the moon. But the moon is really close to the, the moon is really far from the Earth right now. And so it was an annular eclipse, which means it's there's a little ring of the sun that stays around the edge, so it doesn't completely block out the sun. So I'm sure if you're in Asia or maybe in Australia, Middle East, it would have been pretty amazing to see that today. So, okay, and also the new moon, like I said, is a seed point, just like the new year, which started at the solstice. So winter solstice is when Capricorn starts, and that's a time to plant seeds for the whole entire year, set intentions for the whole entire year. But the new moon is a time to set an intention for this moon cycle. So it's like a month bite-sized chunk that you can kind of keep building over the year to help you reach those intentions you set with the winter solstice. And if you didn't set intentions with the winter solstice, no problem. We can still do it all right now. There's no There's no time that's wrong to start setting intentions. So let's talk about Capricorn in particular. Okay, so Capricorn is an earth sign. And the earth signs are all about sensation and physicality and being in the body. It's also, Capricorn is considered an in-service to the culture or the community sign in shamanic astrology. So meaning their primary concern and directive is doing things that support the culture and the community moving forward. And the 4 different in-service to the community signs are different in how they do that. And we'll talk about how Capricorn does that in particular. It's also a left brain type of a sign, and it has a feminine energy. All the earth signs have a feminine energy, where like fire signs have a masculine energy. It's considered an impersonal sign, and that we can sometimes think means something negative, but it doesn't. It just means that it is concerned with the whole entire culture and community rather than specific individuals, right? So it's a little bit more removed so that it can focus on everyone. Like Pisces is like that as well, but in a different sort of way, more of like a transpersonal rather than impersonal. It's also a really big giver sign, Capricorn is, right? Because it's about the culture, the community. So it's all about giving. Winter solstice. So I said this before, but the winter solstice is the moment that Capricorn starts. So 0 degrees Capricorn is the beginning of the winter solstice for us in the Northern Hemisphere here. Capricorn is considered the circle of grandmothers and or grandfathers, right? So it's the wise ones, it's the elders of our society. And we're talking about the energy of that. So you could be very young and be Capricorn, or you could be very old and be Capricorn, right? But they are the wise ones, the elder type energy of our society. They have the knowledge and the wisdom. Capricorns are effective and responsible leaders, teachers, counselors, right? And counselors could mean therapists, but it could be like people who counsel other people, whatever job they're in, people who teach, people who lead in whatever form that looks like. It doesn't have to be a limited perspective. As an earth sign, we consider those to be involution signs, meaning they bring spirit into matter, into the physical body for a reason. And Capricorn brings spirit into matter to like manage and administrate that energy and spirit, right? They're the ones who they know what works and what doesn't work in our society, in our culture, on our earth. They develop forms and structure that sustain home and family and community, right? So they're the ones that create that make like the rules and things that make our world go round and work, essentially. They create practical traditions and institutions for generations to come. So their focus is always on creating things that support generations to come down the line, right? Capricorn would never be focused just on the now. All their choices would come through that filter of how does this help sustain the future? They're efficient and effective, right? Because they're the ones who know what works and what doesn't work, right? They're focused. They get things done, right? They're very practical, motivated by practical and responsible outcomes, right? Because they're the elders, they're the grandmothers and the grandfathers, right? They don't need to mess around with what doesn't work. They know what to do of what works. They enjoy accomplishment. They really know how to do family and community. That's something that's just inherent in Capricorn. And they are the stewards of the earth. So the whole environmental movement is a very Capricorn type path. And their spiritual path is to discover, understand, and manage the material plane, right? The matter, the physicality, mastering objective reality for the benefit and sustainability of the world. So that's really what Capricorn is here to do. And so with it being this Capricorn new moon, and we're in the winter solstice time and the Capricorn sun, this is the energy that we're all kind of moving around in. As a friend of mine calls it, we're in like the Capricorn soup right now. And so even if you don't have Capricorn on your chart, we're still all in this Capricorn type of energy time and with this new moon. And if you do have Capricorn in your chart, some of this list may really resonate for you and some of it may not, because you may be coming from a place where Capricorn is part of your lineage and what you really know and what your soul has been experiencing, or it may be something that's more new, like your rising sign, that has to do more with your purpose and why you're here. And so then you're now learning about Capricorn rather than you are already an expert at Capricorn. So sometimes we're learning about it and sometimes it's something that we already know and embody really well. Okay, so let's talk about the 2 essential oils that I think are perfect for Capricorn and why. So the first one, Birch Sweet. Both birch and frankincense are great for taking care of like our community. And birch is called Betula lenta, is its Latin name. And you can see a couple pictures of the tree here and the trunk. It just has this really cool bark. I love it. It's in the Betulaceae family, which is the birch family, which includes like alders and things. I live in Aspen, Colorado, and so sometimes people think the aspen trees are birch, but they're not. They're totally different species, but they do look a lot alike and they have a lot in common. Birch is native to Eastern North America, from southern Maine, like through kind of the southern part of Ontario and into like Canada, and then south to the Appalachian Mountains into the northern Georgia, right? So it's kind of all that whole east area, which is unusual because there's not a lot of essential oils that necessarily come from plants that are native to the United States. So that's kind of cool. Speaking of like our, the local community here for those of us in the United States. It is a medium-sized deciduous tree, so its leaves change in fall. It's not an evergreen. It reaches up to about 80 feet tall and the trunk can be about 2 feet wide. So just kind of giving you a little perspective on what birch looks like. And it has a really strong scent of wintergreen due to this constituent in it called methyl salicylate. And if you have some, you can smell it. In the bark, it's produced in the bark. And so like the bark and the twigs actually have that wintergreen, really birch type of smell. It was originally sourced for birch beer, so it was kind of like one of the original root beers. The trees can be tapped for sap like maple trees. I think that's kind of cool, and it can be boiled. It's the syrup is a little bit stronger. It's kind of more the thickness of like molasses. And Native Americans and early European settlers enjoyed a tea that was flavored with birch bark used for fevers, stomach ache, lung ailments. Okay, and here is some of our uses. So, birch sweet, the spiritual uses. The trees have an underground root system that's interconnected with the roots of all the surrounding trees, like the aspen trees here as well. So it's obviously amazing at supporting feelings of greater connection with others, right? It's all about connection and community. The trees, the birch trees, they're the stewards of their community. So you can kind of see why this is so great for Capricorn. Trees in general are both like very grounding because the roots go deep into the soil, but they're also consciousness facilitators because they're always reaching up to like the sky and the stars and the solar system and the moon, you know, and the sun, all of that. And both of our essential oils today come from trees. Birch is also very uplifting and energizing, and it's emotional pain relieving, especially if that's coming from disconnection, which is often an emotional pain we all just feel as humans just from the original moment of incarnation when we separate from the whole of all of spirit, but is especially, you know, we generally kind of all go through some kind of wounding that leads us to feeling some disconnection. Birch is amazing for all of that. So it's a great essential oil for just this whole time of year, right? We're in that Capricorn time, but it's the holiday season. You know, none of these things are by coincidence. And then the physical uses of birch sweet: anti-inflammatory, so it's really amazing for any kind of swelling, injuries, anything like that. Analgesic means pain relieving. So we talked about the emotional pain relieving, but it's also physical pain relieving as well. So again, injuries, anything like that. I have found it great for migraines and things like that too for people. Astringent just means it like dries, it pulls the fluid out. So that's how it helps with swelling and inflammation, joint pain, bones. Birch is just like my go-to for any type of like injury, surgery, anything hurt, bone stuff, any of that, because it really helps support them. It's a blood purifier. That's one of the original Native American uses of it, was a blood purifier. So think of like detoxing, cleansing, right? It's been the holidays. We probably all have been eating and drinking things we don't normally do. So birch is nice because it kind of helps detox and clear us out. Gout, that is when people are not processing the uric acid well. Birch is really helpful for that. Headaches, like I mentioned with migraines, but all kinds of headaches, and skin rashes as well. All right, now frankincense. Frankincense, its Latin name is Boswellia carteri. There are lots of different types of frankincense, but that's the one that I have. And look at this tree. Isn't it amazing? It's so cool looking, just all gnarled and twisted. And the essential oil comes from the sap, the resin that comes out of the tree, which I'll show another picture in a moment. It's in the Berceraceae family, which is the torchwood family, which has like myrrh, right? So frankincense and myrrh often go together because they were in the Bible, the New Testament, or simply they can often be called the incense tree family. So I love that. It's native to the Middle East and North Africa. It too is a deciduous tree like birch, so it loses its leaves. It's not an evergreen. It only grows to a height of like up to 25 feet. So it's much smaller than a birch tree, but both are much smaller than like, you know, pine trees, which can be like hundreds of feet tall, right? It's scraggly but hardy, considered unusual for their ability to grow in environments so unforgiving that they sometimes grow out of solid rock, right? So function always follows form. So knowing that about frankincense, right, that it's like hardy, it grows in unforgiving environments, gives us some clues as to what it can do for us spiritually, physically, emotionally, all of that. Frankincense, what they do is they slash the bark and then the resin comes out, and then like the first cut has the most constituents, is the most healing properties. Third cut, fourth cut, or less so. That's why you always want to kind of know your source, because it all gets labeled frankincense, but some of it's really cheap and doesn't have a lot of therapeutic value, and then some of it is really expensive and has a lot of therapeutic value, or sometimes they're selling the cheap stuff or the expensive stuff, you know, so it's one of those things you kind of want to know the company that you're getting your essential oils from. The resin is allowed to harden, and then they scrape it off in these little tear shapes. So it's called the frankincense tears, which is lovely as well. And then they steam distill the resin to get the essential oil right here. Differences in soil and climate create even more diversity in the resin, meaning like the more therapeutic or less therapeutic. So even within the same species, which is really true for all essential oils. So again, it's why you want to really know where you're sourcing your oils from. Frankincense has played a huge role in the religious and domestic life of the ancient Egyptians, the Babylonians, the Persians, Hebrews, Greek, Roman civilizations. It's mentioned in the Old and New Testaments too many times to even go into here. It's one of the 4 main ingredients that make up the Jewish ceremonial incense. Together with gold and myrrh, it was made as an offering to the infant Jesus. Frankincense is a symbol of holiness and righteousness, right? So it has this really, really long, ancient history, which is part of why I think it's so amazing for Capricorn, not to mention that it's like, it's famous for this time of year, right? So it is a deva known plant-wide from antiquity for all levels of spiritual work and facilitation. Meditation, it opens God consciousness, it's celestial and ascension. And I always say, when in doubt, frankincense. So here are some of the spiritual uses. So frankincense, I wanted to read from this book called Wisdom of the Earth Speaks by Barry Kapp. And he says, quote, frankincense does reveal, talking from the perspective of the frankincense plant, does reveal my character quite well when you look at me closely. Frank gives you the gift of authenticity to look at and go into your own life and see what is truly going on. In this life, now, in the moment of your very present feelings and experiences. I am with you to see and sense, shower you again with the true sense of you and who you really are. So I think that's nice to keep in mind when you think of frankincense. God consciousness, the 6th and 7th chakras, right? It's known for that. So a great place to use frankincense is just like straight onto the top of your head or onto your 3rd eye, being mindful to not get it into your eyes. It cleanses the aura, right? The energy fields of the body. It paves the way to higher self. It helps you connect to your higher self, your spirit. Meditation and expansion. Protection when vulnerable, right? So again, these are all like Capricorn type things. Protection, paving the way to our higher selves, the elders, our wise ones, inner guidance. It's a tree, so it's very grounding, but it's also connected to the cosmos as well because it sits out under the sun and the moon and the stars. It's an antidepressant and anti-anxiety. It's really good for both of those. Tranquilizing. It helps us to break free and helps us awakens our spiritual purpose. And then the physical uses are, here you can see the little, the resin tears that are steam distilled, but look at this too. The flowers, aren't they so beautiful? They're so unusual looking. Okay, so it really supports the immune system, which is the healer of the body. It's anti-cancer, anti-tumor. That's one of the things it's known for. But of course, you always need to go to your doctor if you have a major thing going on. Analgesic, so it's pain relieving as well. Anti-inflammatory, just like birch. Antibacterial, it's highly antiviral. So that's nice during this time of year where we're kind of can get sort of run down and exposed to a lot of different things, seeing people from all over. It's huge for the nervous system. It's really good for the skin. It aids scar tissue and wound healing. Skin cancers, it's good for respiratory system, asthma, bronchitis, sinusitis, laryngitis. It's really good for all of those things. So, okay, so now I'm going to stop the share and let's do our new moon ceremony here. So let's just, again, we can re-anoint ourselves, preparing for the ceremony. And why we do a new moon ceremony is it's just all about trying to work consciously with the cycles that are around us and that we're exposed to all the time, right? So just consciously trying to tune into the cycle of the moon and use that intentionally, knowing where the sun is and what's going on with that, using the essential oils to help connect us into the earth, right? So that's the whole point of doing ceremony, is to interact consciously with the cycles that we're all experiencing and going through, so that you can, you know, use them to your own benefit and growth. So right now, with the eclipse that's happening, as well as Jupiter is in Capricorn, traveling close to the sun and the new moon, it's especially poignant time to set intentions, and it's a very expansive time as well because of Jupiter there. So it's great that we're doing this ceremony today, is really my point. So we'll just take a few minutes in silence and just tune into what is your intention for this moon cycle. And I encourage you to pick like one thing, one intention, one seed you want to plant, not just a litany, right? You can make your winter solstice intention for the whole year encompass more things. But it's nice at each moon cycle to pick like one thing that you can work on throughout this particular cycle. But by all means, do whatever you feel called to do, but I'm just suggesting that. So we'll just take a moment in silence to let you drop into what your intention is, and then go ahead and write it down. I'll give you another minute to complete that. Okay, and then today, how we're going to complete the ceremony is one of two ways. So either you brought a plant or you have a stone, or if you don't have either, you can do this later. So I always like to do the ceremony based on the element that the sign is in. So it's earth. So there's two things you could do. I'm going to take my little piece of paper that I wrote my intentions on, singular, and I'm going to fold it up and bury it into one of the plants behind me. So it moves into the earth, and the earth composts and digests that. You could also bury it outside. If you have a stone, you could take a moment and whisper, like, I have this crystal here. You could whisper your intention into the stone and bury the stone, or if it's crystal that you want to hold on, then put it somewhere sacred for you, so you keep getting a reminder of that intention. So now again, we'll just take a couple minutes and you can send your intention off into the world however you feel drawn to today. And I'm going to put my little piece of paper in this plant where I put my winter solstice year intentions. And I'll just give you another minute to complete that process for yourself. And just taking a breath, just let your breath move that intention, that seed that you're planting for this moon cycle, this Capricorn new moon cycle, governed by the circle of grandmothers, down into the earth, where it can plant and sprout and grow. And then that's it for today. So thank you for being with me for this Capricorn new moon ceremony. I think it's so important to take the time and just interact consciously with what's going on so that it helps to increase our ability to fulfill those intentions and be connected to what's going on seasonally and in the world, because you know, we can be really disconnected from that easily, just watching TV or, you know, not going out at night, you know, looking at the stars or taking the time to connect to the earth, those types of things. So I appreciate you all being here with me today. And our next class will be on the Aquarius new moon next month, Friday, January 24th. Again, we'll do that at 4 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And the 2 essential oils that we're going to focus on is helichrysum for Aquarius, as well as there are essential oils made specifically from pine cones that are amazing for that Aquarian energy as well. So thanks for being here, whether you're here live or listening to the recording.